Good afternoon, Chip.
Good afternoon. So great to be here with you.
I'm so excited I got you on the show. You were not easy to get on the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for your patience and for getting me on here. It's going to be a good time.
I'm so excited. I met you through the amazing platform of Clubhouse. I think I was in a room with you where you were just dropping knowledge and supporting one another. And I think I asked a question and you answered it. And I was just like, I'm so blown away by the generosity of people like you who are just there to help and see people succeed. So I'm so grateful that I got to meet you, that we exchanged some messages on Instagram, and that you said yes, and for being here on Michelle's Conversations That Matter. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you for asking me. This is a great opportunity. You have been a power on Clubhouse as well that I've loved listening to, and as I was saying, there are many DMs coming through for getting on things like this, and you are the first one that I've met with from Clubhouse. So there you go.
Yay! I feel so lucky. Thank you so much. So a little bit about my series before we jump in. We're going to talk about the power of connection today. I am created Michelle's Conversations That Matter to actually elevate the conversation about resilience, mental health, and well-being, and educate people, whether it's an expert coming on talking about a clinical diagnosis or people just sharing their stories. And inspiration. I think, talking about the power of connection today is going to be a good topic. I think all of us can relate to this. So, so could we start off? Could you just introduce yourself, Chip? People don't know you like I do. So tell us who you are, where you live, and what you do for a living.
You get me all excited about talking about connection, and then you want to,
Sorry.
I'll talk So I'm Chip Hopper, the Bookjedi. I work with influencers and top executives and turning them into best-selling authors. And what my framework is that I work around frameworks for books. So Bookjedi is actually the journey, evolution, disruption, and insights gained from books. And I've been reading a book a week for almost 20 years, many of those in the personal development space. Been interested in the body and the mind since I was very little. When I was 5, my dad was in medical school, and he used to take me to the cadaver lab and put me on the tables while he dissected bodies. And I fell in love with the human body, the way the muscles work together, the way all those pieces work. As I got older, I fell in love with the brain and the way we think and the way we operate. So many of my connections in the space came because as I started to really dive into personal development, every time I read a good book, and this leans to the power of connection, every time I read something I enjoyed, I would reach out to the author any way I could. And this is way back before any of the social media. There were no mobile phones. There were none of those things. So it was like you just had to track down any way you could find access to this person. But what amazed me is how many of these people responded and connected with me. And what I found is it's because of the authenticity and the vulnerability when you connect, that if you can go to someone and show the value that they brought and give them value, then there's this opportunity to connect. And that turned into a network of some of the most amazing authors and leaders around the world being friends of mine that have become friends of mine over the last 20 years. And so what people would do is they would come to me and they would say, "Hey, Chip, what's a good book on leadership?" And I found that just giving everybody the same book, the one that worked for me, didn't really help them because everybody has a different framework. Mm-hmm. And it became about helping people connect with the right books and the right mentors. And so that's a lot of what I do now. I put big names on big stages to connect audiences with messages that will help them. My mission is to help people decide or to have the tools to figure out how they want to live, not to tell people how they should live. I believe we all have a different path, and that's my mission.
And we have to discover that. I think that there's something powerful there. I have a remarkable coach who will not give me the answers, but instead will lead me to discover the answers for myself. And there's so much power in that, because
it's so much.
Yeah. And I have these aha moments and I'm like, you could have just told me that. But then I'm like, no, I needed to discover it and relate it to myself because it's more powerful that way.
Yep. I like to say that the best coaches are able to coach without the person being coached realizing that they're actually being coached. And what I mean by that is that if I can get my clients to bring the answers out of themselves and walk away from the session going, wow, that was all inside me, that's the perfect place to be, in my opinion, as a coach.
That's amazing. So I have loved being in Clubhouse with you. And before we went on the air, I was asking you, how you liked Clubhouse and how long have you been on Clubhouse and how are you liking it? And then we'll talk a little bit about your rooms. I'd love to hear.
So are we counting this in days or are we counting this in hours on the platform?
Not in hours. Let's just boil it down to approximate months, maybe.
Yeah, so I've had invites for Clubhouse for many, many months. I think I was one of the early ones invited to the platform. But like many of us, it's like, oh my gosh, another social media platform. So I don't think I actually signed up for Clubhouse until it was, I think it was January. It could have been late December, but it was probably early January. I know the app says, so anybody can get on and check. Mm-hmm. But I was immediately pulled into a room by one of my good friends, C-Rock, and he pulled me into this room. Amazing people jumped up on the stage, and we started talking with them, and it was just a fantastic conversation. And as someone who, like, I run big events. I put together events with thousands of participants and, 40 or 50 speakers and some of the biggest names in the business, like Brendan Burchard, Jay Shetty, Lewis Howes, Tom and Lisa Bilyeu, Mel Robbins. I could go on and on with the names that I work with. But what I found on Clubhouse was this space where it didn't take, $1 million and several months and all this coordination and effort and a team of 50 people. We could in minutes have a room with over 1,000 people in the room, 50 people on stage, including those big names. And it has just been such a fantastic way to share insight and knowledge and to learn. And I am in there scribbling notes as much as anyone else, even when I'm on the stages and they're looking for my input, I'm just constantly scribbling down what everybody else is saying because there's so much good value out there and so many amazing people on Clubhouse. So
I totally agree. And I feel like every time I hop into a room, I am learning. It's like a constant. I think the thing that fascinates me the most as a new entrepreneur to have been introduced to a platform like Clubhouse that's filled with entrepreneurs who have gone through some stuff and have stuff to share is like gold for me. I just can't learn enough. And like you said, like there's always something to be writing down and going, I have to check that out. I have to explore this. It's so amazing.
Yeah. And for me, I love giving people the opportunity to share their stories. We all have these powerful stories and our voices are all needed. And Clubhouse has created a space where we can do that. And so helping people to share their voices and to tell their stories has been something I've always loved doing. But the scale that we can do it at on Clubhouse just blows me away every day.
So you have a room specifically on creating your story, right? You shared that with me before we went on.
Yeah, we do. We have a room called Nailing Your Clubhouse Intro. And we run it every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and sometimes the other days as well, because we just have too much fun doing it.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it's been a great room. I do that with a couple of partners, Charles Best and Brooke Heim. And we kind of bring this trifecta of the spoken, written, and the felt word so that you can feel emotions and also have a written and spoken word. So
I got to get in the next one. I don't know why I missed it. I got to get in there. I think I might have met you in one of them, but like I have to get in there and refine my stuff. So
it's this afternoon. So
yeah,
there you go. So here's one of my favorite things about Clubhouse in that regard. And that is that there's so many opportunities to get on a stage and tell your story that you can iterate your story more quickly than anywhere else I've seen. So when I bring people onto stages and I get them in front of anywhere from 25 people to several thousand people, it doesn't matter, right? it's an experience where they get on stage and they get to see the response of the audience, and they go back and they refine their message and they change their story and they get better and better every time they get on stage. Well, here you can get on stage you walk into one room after another, and if you are willing to put in the time and the effort, you can iterate your story so many times in such a short amount of time. Even for me as a storyteller, I have found that I've changed my story multiple times on Clubhouse because of the speed at which it allowed me to go, oh, when I tell it that way, I'm actually drawing in some clients that I didn't want, or that, and so where it was much more spaced out before, Clubhouse has really narrowed down that time to be able to get that immediate feedback. And one of my favorite sayings is, practice doesn't make perfect, perfect practice makes perfect. And the way you have perfect practice is you have that constant feedback from those that can see what you're doing and be able to tell you what you're not able to see yourself.
Got it. I need to be in your room. I'm going to have to get in there. I interviewed Forbes Riley the other day, and I had entered at my own risk one of her rooms to practice my pitch. That's a whole other can of worms. But this feels a little bit more safe.
I love Forbes, and she is one of the most amazing people with words that I've ever met. I've been in her room a few times with her. Had some phone calls with her about it as well. I do really enjoy our rooms and the intimacy of our rooms, and the way we connect. So it's a little bit more about your personal story, and Forbes is a little bit more focused on the sale.
Yeah.
But to clarify, I think we're all in sales.
Yeah, we are.
Sales, and it doesn't sales is about having people have emotion and moving a direction because of that emotion. So if you don't realize that you're in sales, your life is going to be you're not going to have the life that you want. The only way to have the life that you want is to set it by intention. And you have to be able to move people and emotions in order to move the life that you want. So we're all in sales.
Yeah.
Whether or not you realize it. So I do love that part of it. But to me, the storytelling, right? When you tell a story, it's about connecting with the other person. And the way you connect with them is that within your story, they hear pieces of their own story. And that's what draws people in. And it's kind of funny. I say this on Clubhouse a lot when people are like, how much should I tell? I'm like, well, from a psychology standpoint, if you want someone to feel like they know you, let them do all the talking, because as they tell their own story, they will feel heard and seen by you, and will walk away from that conversation thinking that you're best friends, even though they couldn't tell you anything about you.
Oh, wow.
Wow,
that's powerful. I never thought about it that way. Absolutely awesome. You also run relationship rooms with your partner?
Yes. Brooke Hyman is a relationship expert, a sexual empowerment and intimacy coach.
Yes.
And she starts with your relationship with yourself and then with your relationship with others. And so we have a great time getting together with people in Clubhouse and talking about ways to improve relationships, ways to improve communication. And those rooms are a blast as well. We don't have those officially set up any time yet, but feel free to jump on and ping us on Instagram, and we'll get you in those rooms with us.
I feel like I stepped into one where you guys were talking about masculine, feminine energy, I think at one point a couple of weeks or a week ago or so, and that was powerful. I was all ears. That was a really good chat that you were having. Okay, let's dive into the power of connection, even though we've sort of been talking about connection. So, the thing I love about Clubhouse too is the level of authenticity, right? Some of the bigger rooms, they're not as vulnerable, but some of the smaller rooms, like it sounds like the one that you have, where people are vulnerable and they're honest and they're just totally, out there, like just sharing their heart and sharing themselves. It feels like there is this genuine connection happening. And I don't know, I would just sort of like your perspective because when I was on, I think, a stage and you were sharing and you were generous with your contribution to me, I was like, wow, this person doesn't even know me. Why are you so personally very passionate about connecting people and helping people?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. I'll try and not let things fall out of my mind, but because that always happens to me. But one of my quotes that I grew up kind of loving was Henry Thoreau said, "Most men lead lives of quiet desperation." And, men and women and all of us, we have these things in our lives that are just, they feel out of place. They feel disconnected. And I don't believe it has to be that way. I believe we have the knowledge and the science to be able to live the lives that we want. And so that quote kind of drives me. And when it comes to connecting, as a species, some of the things that make us who we are our power of connection and our power of collaboration. And those two things lift us as a society. Yuval Harari speaks much better to this than I do. If you've ever read *Sapiens*, *Sapiens* is a fantastic book about this. Highly recommend it. I could recommend books all day long because
I got it.
but for me, I've always loved to connect with people, and connecting with authenticity is the most powerful form of connection I've ever found. I spent many, many years doing sales and marketing in different ways and at different levels, and was an executive at many companies as well, running those types of things. And in fact, my background is all over the place, so we probably don't want to get too deep into that. But I helped pioneer the animation program at the university that I went to. And part of the reason that I loved animation was the ability to give life and meaning to inanimate objects or things through animation. But that turned into, that continual evolution of understanding how we connect and how we think. And I lost my train of thought on where I was going with connection, but anyway, it'll come back to me.
You're making me think of Inside Out, that movie, and how these are cartoons, but like you got their feelings, right? Like that's so cool to be able to understand how another person is feeling, and to have a cartoon exude that. That's pretty intense.
Yeah, and that is where the connection comes in. And I remembered the point that I was going to make, which is, for many years I went around to networking events, and my goal was to connect to as many people as I could. And so I did that by collecting business cards. If I could get everybody's business card in the room, that was how I was successful. And what I ended up with was plastic bags full, like the little Ziploc bags, just full of people's business cards. Like I still have them, I just don't throw them away. but I never use them, right? And so what I found was that true connection, like my focus shifted from getting everybody's business card to actually finding one or two people in an event that I really connected with and wanted to move forward with. So much so that about 10 years ago, I stopped doing business cards altogether. And so that when people ask me for one, I'm like, I don't do business cards, right? And if we connect, then it's like, I'm going to give you my phone number, because then something's going to happen.
Right.
But yeah, connecting. It's interesting that you picked this topic, because this is one of my favorite topics. And I'm huge into assessments, and one of my favorite assessments is the Strengthsfinder Assessment.
Yes.
And my number one thing is connectedness,
Mm-hmm.
and my number two is learner. And so those two things come together really well when I'm working with frameworks of how to live your best life. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's what it's about. Too many people, too many parents, all of us are like, well, here's how I found was successful for me, so this is the way that you need to live your life. When instead it should be, here are the tools that got me to be able to figure out how to live the life I wanted. Use them to figure out the life that you want.
Right. That's powerful. So let's talk about, let's talk about how you turn influencers into best-selling authors and speakers so they generate massive impact and income. I got to tell you, Chip, I'm a published author, and my book did not generate massive income. But then again, I believe it did generate impact on people. So how do you do what you do? I would love to know. Share with us a little bit about the Bookjedi and what you do.
Yeah, happy to. So first, the first thing that most people don't understand about books is books rarely are the moneymaker.
Exactly.
So you don't make money from the book, you make money because of the book. And so I work with people and I said, look, let's get your book out there. Let's get it in front of people. We have programs and systems and processes to make New York Times bestseller if we want. Most of becoming a bestseller at any level is just understanding the processes and the systems. And then it takes, the investment of money or whatever else to get to the levels that you want. But at any of those levels, making money from the book is very, very rare. I coached many, many years of youth football, and every youth football player that ever played for me wanted to play in the pros. And I have often likened that to coaching, and, to a lesser extent being an author. But when you want to be a personal development coach, or you want to be a life coach, or any of these things, we so often, there's so many people around that are like, this is what I do. And most of them are doing it at what I call the high school football level, which means they are associated with it. They love it. It's the game of their choice, but on the side, they got to go work a job in order to make money, because they're not making money doing that piece that they love. And so what I work with clients to do is move them from high school to college to the pros. And often that includes having a book, but it is not the book that ends up making them the money. It's the courses around the book, or it's the speaking engagements that they get, and those things. So when I talk about generating income, I love how Les Brown talks about the more impact you have, the more income you make. I also believe that the reverse is true, that you need income to make impact. And so when I can sit with people and help them come up with a way to make the money and have the space that they need in order to focus on the pieces of the puzzle that they want to work on, that to me is super empowering. I spent so many years of my life trying to please everyone else. I had the corner office on the top floor, and then, the nice floor to ceiling windows. And I remember sitting there going, I'm not happy, right? This isn't what I want to be doing with my life. And I found that what I want to be doing with my life is connecting to people. And so I had to go, okay, if I want to be connecting and I want to be learning, how do I take those things and either leverage some other way of making money to do it, or leverage those strengths and those interests to make money? And it's about figuring out that clarity. Clarity is so important in everything that we do. If we don't have clarity, then how can we map anything out? And how can we have the life that we want if we can't even get clear on what that is? So.
Yeah. And the focus, right? I feel like, I was in a room this morning and someone said that they were working on like 10 different things. And a couple of the folks on the stage were like, you're going to succeed at doing none of that well because you're so unfocused.
Yeah. It's like, I often use the analogy that I've got all these things that I'm working on, and I can move them all like this, or I can focus in and move one significantly. And that's, it's a huge piece of it. So.
What has been the most fulfilling experience of helping someone achieve their goal?
Wow. That's a tough question. I really have a hard time ranking any specific experience over another, because they're all just so moving. Every time that I sit down with someone and I'm able to walk through what's going on in their life and leave feeling like they have found more clarity and direction in what they're doing, every time that just, ignites me. It ignites me to continue pushing for my own clarity. I'll be very open and say, like, I don't, my clarity is not what it could be. I could be doing so much more if I had more clarity on where I was going. So don't get discouraged if you don't know. It's about taking action. And the more that we can realize that it's taking that action that moves us forward, not the thinking of what we're going to do, the more that we'll find that success. I love the pilot analogy. when a pilot is flying from one location to another, the percentage of time that they're actually on track is almost nothing. And the reason they get from the start to the destination is because they're moving forward and they're making continual corrections as they go. So that's kind of what we need to do with everything we're doing, is just take that action.
That's awesome. So were you always the Bookjedi? What did you do before the Bookjedi?
Yeah, so the Bookjedi actually has an interesting history to it. I was not always the Bookjedi, although I kind of, looking backwards, it's like, well, yeah, of course that's what I was. Because of all the reading I've done and things, I'm always quoting books. I'm always quoting movies. I love that kind of stuff, which is very interesting because I definitely don't have a photographic memory. And, if I were a kid today, I would be labeled with ADD or ADHD. And in fact, I'm actually dyslexic. And so I write letters backwards, and I have a nightmare time spelling and doing any of those things. But at the same time, I can also recognize word patterns from a visual perspective. And so I can read upside down and backwards as well as I can read right side up and forwards.
Oh my goodness.
But if you ask me how to spell even the most basic of words, I'll get it wrong. If you have me drive from point A to point B, I can do it. Or from point A to point C, I can do it. But if you put me in B and tell me to get to C, I'll be like, I don't know where to go. So it's about taking those things that might look like challenges and figuring out what are really your superpowers, and then focusing on those superpowers. So before the Bookjedi, I went through 10 majors in college, and my whole life, when I was early 30s, I started writing a document of all the companies that I had worked for. And I realized after I finished writing it, I had worked for more companies than I was years old. And so I moved around a lot, tried a lot of different things, looking for what fit. And I spent many years as a business strategist, doing business development and marketing, helping companies figure out where they needed to fit in their verticals and everything else. And people would often say, how did you get into corporate strategy? And I'm like, by doing everything. Job out there, I have done it, from shoveling laundry detergent onto a conveyor belt to doing 1 or 2 on the I thing, to being a licensed financial planner, to you name it, I have probably done a job that relates to that. And it was doing all of those things that helped me kind of see that. And my focus was on growing businesses. And I realized that what I loved doing was growing individuals, specifically in the personal development space, those that had messages that could help us live better lives. And that's kind of where the Bookjedi evolved from, that and all the questions coming about what book should I read. Those are kind of the 2 factors that brought it in. And my brother, he likes to refer to me as a conductor. He's like, Chip, you like to be the one that brings together all the right voices on the stage so that people come away with the best experience possible. And I've always loved the way he put that. And when the Bookjedi started, what I was doing was I was looking for a term that could be for the people that were in the community or my, the people that I spent time with, of what can we call ourselves if we're interested in that continuous learning. And I put out all these names and did all this testing, and everybody's like, I love Bookjedi. I'm like, all right, Bookjedi it is. When I released it, everybody's like, started calling me the Bookjedi. And at first I was like, no, that was not the intent. I meant everybody could be Bookjedis, right? And but that kind of stuck. And the same with, Kevin Bacon on the 6 Degrees of he resisted that for a long time. And now he's using it for good and to make a big impact. So I've accepted being called the Bookjedi. It's a lot of fun to go around and talk about it. And it's so, for me, it's so empowering to talk to authors about their journeys and what the book has done for them, and the insights that they've gained from those books. Because at the end of the day, we are all human and we're all living the human experience. And I think it's easy for most of us to forget that. And most of us to forget that just because we're seeing the bright spots of someone's lives doesn't mean that they're any different than us. We all have our journeys. We're all doing our own things. And for me, when I can humanize authors to audiences, that does as much to motivate those audiences as just about anything else. To realize that some of these amazing people, like Amberly Lago, who is a really good friend of mine, an amazing individual. People look at her from the outside and are like, "Oh my gosh, I could never be Amberly." And then she tells her story in vulnerability and authenticity, and you realize that we're all going through these things.
Yeah.
And even when I talk about one of the most valuable things I think people can do is have mentors and coaches.
Yes.
And people are like, well, how do you find the right mentor or coach?
Yeah.
There are two things. The first is to find the right individual. And what I mean by the right individual is find someone who has been where you want to be and ask directions.
Yeah.
That is the most important part. But the second part is that these people, most people I've met that have succeeded are very interested in helping others succeed.
So true.
Almost without exception. The challenge comes in that we can't just reach out to everybody, because if you reach out to everybody, you end up getting pulled out of your game.
Yeah.
And I use the analogy of when you put tape on the floor in the shape of a V, and you have two people start at the point of the V, put their hands together, and they walk out and their feet get further and further apart, and they try and keep their balance, you'll find that the person with the larger mass has to lean in less, and the person with the smaller mass has to lean in significantly more. And I liken that to finding a good mentor. If you are getting a mentor who has had much more success than you, is in a much different place than you need to lean in significantly more into that relationship to keep it balanced. And you'll find that they want to lean into you just as much as you want to lean into them. But if they lean into you with the same force, that you're going to tip over.
Yeah.
And they're going to tip over as well.
Yeah.
So my advice is, create that value and lean into those relationships to find the mentors that are going to help, and they're out there that want to help move you to the next level. So.
Oh my goodness. I totally agree. What's the definition of insanity? I used to think, I was new as an entrepreneur last year. And I didn't have like a wild, successful first year of being an entrepreneur after 19 years in the corporate space. I don't know why. I had no wisdom. I had no guidance. I had no compass. So like the definition of insanity was keep doing the same thing and expect a different result, right? So I got myself a mentor, and it's like things have been completely different since I started to surround myself with a mentor and people who are doing the same thing that I'm trying to do. And that's, have a successful entrepreneurial company, So it's so true. So so if I was to tell my friends about the Bookjedi, sorry, that's how I see you now.
I'm totally cool with that. I've embraced that.
Who is your ideal avatar, I guess, your ideal client that you like to work with?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I constantly tell people that they need to refine their avatars and focus on the right audience. I have the space where I'm able to not necessarily have to focus in on any one avatar. So I don't have an excellent answer for this question. I would like to say, well, anybody between 25 and 50, right? But really, it's about. I guess I would clarify it more on terms of, who is ready to make impact in their lives and change their lives. So my avatar would be somebody who is ready to invest in themselves and is interested in going to the next level and ready to take action on that. And that is the type of person that I look with. We all have stories. We all have value. If I went back to the business that I used to do, I often had people ask me which vertical that I created corporate strategies in. And I'm like, it's not about the vertical to me, because one of the most powerful ways that I could move a company forward was to pull what somebody was doing in a different vertical into that vertical and leverage that in the new vertical. And for me, it's the same when we talk about our stories. We have stories that can move us forward. We just need to connect with our right audience. And the technology that is advancing, including Clubhouse, Clubhouse is such a fantastic space to meet people that are like-minded like you. And none of us are like, if you throw out an idea, the chances that we have tens of thousands of people that have had that same idea is huge. There's almost 8 billion people on the planet. And, we have similar experiences. We do similar things. So if you can approach life from a, hey, who else is having thoughts like I am and ideas like I'm having, and work in this collaborative space instead of a competitive space, you're just going to be able to go so much further. So I don't know if that gives a good answer on my avatar, but it really does come down to, are you looking to grow? Are you looking to be in a better space?
I love it. Yeah, Christian is here. He's making comments. I thought I would pop him up. He has said,
hey, Christian,
about you. I love it. Thank you for joining us, Christian. It's good to see you. So tell us, I know that your rooms around telling your story have sort of called to you to do more for them, and you're about to start a mastermind. Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. First, I'll just speak to clubhouses I'll speak to masterminds in general.
Yeah.
So masterminds, in addition to mentors, are the way that you really level up. So a mentor is going to help take you from one place to another because they've been there. Masterminds are going to help you level up with the network and the group of people that you associate with. So we've all heard the saying, we're only as, we're the sum of the 5 people we spend the most time with.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of truth to that. And what masterminds do is help you take your network to a level that you might not have been able to achieve without that network. One that I did was I got an MBA, and my MBA has never served me for anything other than the people that I met within that environment. Yeah. Nobody or very few people have ever cared that I have an MBA, but it was the people and the relationships that I formed in there that still to this day, 15 years after getting my MBA, are still some of the most powerful relationships that I have. That masterminds are a similar situation where you can get into an environment with the right people to help move you to the next space. And if you are curated into the right masterminds, you will have amazing experiences. Now, the difficulty here is that often people use the term mastermind is overused.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. And it's not really about helping each other out. What true masterminds are, if you go back to Napoleon Hill, are bringing people together in a selfish and selfless way, which means that at parts of the mastermind, you are going to be the center of attention where everybody is focused on helping you. And at other parts of the mastermind, you're going to be focused on helping others within the situation.
Yeah.
A lot of people talk about hot seats or opportunity chairs but those elements of masterminds are huge in helping take people to the next level. So with these Clubhouse intros, we found that there are a number of people out there that are, this isn't new to Clubhouse, right? But we found this within Clubhouse as well, that they want to move to that next level. And I love to open up my network to people, and I love to connect them with famous people around the world. It's super fun for me, and it's actually super fun for the other famous or influential people that network, because like I said before, they want to connect with people. They just need to put filters up because they have to be careful.
Yeah.
For otherwise they stumble and fall. So what we do is we bring together masterminds where we bring in top names of different industries. And I'm going to not name any of them here just so that I don't send me out or whatever. But we bring in some of the most, we bring in billionaires, we bring in New York Times bestsellers. We bring in people that they can add into their network. And it's not just about being like, oh, there's a cool person. It's like, this person's going to come, they're going to teach the mastermind, but they're also going to collaborate and connect with you on the projects that you're working on. And that is the true power of masterminds. So we do a lot of masterminds. We are starting one up specifically because of some of the things we've been doing in Clubhouse around making sure you have the right intro. That's going to expand into, how do you turn your introduction or your story into profit, and how do you move to the space where that becomes of value for you in life, but also specifically on Clubhouse. And then we also have a mastermind that where we're going to help people take their stories, put them into a book, get those books out, and take them to whatever level they want to take that book. So
I love that. So what I really love is that you're sharing this with my community of people, and not everybody is in Clubhouse. So if people are struggling and they want a space like this, and they don't have access to Clubhouse because they have a Droid, which is like ridiculous. They might want to reach out to you at Chip Hopper on Instagram and connect with you and learn about it. Because I think, that's what's so great about you doing something outside of Clubhouse is that you then open yourself up and your resources and your mastermind to other people. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me at Chip Hopper on just about any platform. My biggest platform prior to Clubhouse was LinkedIn. Unfortunately, that's not quite in the flow of Clubhouse. And it's been really interesting because I spent most of my time, when I went to social media, almost all of my time was on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But when Clubhouse came out, I think I've been to LinkedIn twice since I got on Clubhouse. And so it's because of the flow that Clubhouse has pushed, which is Instagram.
Yeah.
So my unused Instagram account has now become like this. I've got something like a 45,000% increase in my Instagram, something crazy. Every time Instagram is like, here's how your account's changed. And it's like, but
it's so funny because traditional networking is forever changed with Clubhouse, in my opinion. I know that I used to do this thing called Lunch Club where I would meet someone, I'd schedule a Zoom call, it would be one-on-one. Hopefully the AI created the bridge between my interests and their interests. It's like jump in a Clubhouse room and just read someone's profile, listen to them speak, and you could forge an immediate conversation with them. It's so powerful, right?
It is one of the few platforms where it's like, you're talking to them and it's live and it has immediate feedback and response. It's beautiful. And whether or not Clubhouse becomes the next MySpace or the next Facebook, who knows? Yeah. But this type of technology is going to stick around. Hey, my son's coming in to say hello. I don't think he knew that we were video recording.
That's awesome. Live TV, that's the way it works.
It's not like Forbes' husband coming in without a shirt on. But
that's so true. Oh my God, Chip, you're so right about that.
Hey, buddy, what's going on? He constantly, he's like, Dad, everybody that you ever introduced me to is somebody famous.
He's looking, he's like, is she famous? No, I'm not famous.
But he and I think this is a good lesson for everybody, but sometimes I'll be going to an event or something and he's like, you're just going to go and have fun. And I'm like, bud, do you want me to do work that I don't enjoy? like there's such a mindset built in for us that work is something that is like no fun, right?
Yeah.
And to me, the best way to succeed in life is to find work that you just love doing. And that can get us into the whole conversation of balance and everything else. But that'll have to be another conversation because I think we're running low on time.
Yeah.
I will say just a note on Clubhouse is that, and this is just advice for anybody using Clubhouse, make sure that you are moving people from Clubhouse to a space where you actually own that connection. And because like any platform, any social media platform, you don't technically own the connections within that platform. The platform owns those connections, and you never know what rules or algorithms they're going to change to make it so you might lose access to your audience. So I always recommend take advantage of the way that you can write in Clubhouse right now. Get in there, get involved, but also make sure that those that you're truly connecting with, you're moving those connections outside of Clubhouse and outside of social media platforms so that you still have those should something move. So.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Chip. This has been such a great conversation.
I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thanks for giving me some of your time. You've been a very busy human being to nail down. So thank you for being here and sharing everything you did, for the work that you're doing in the world, and for everything you're doing with Bookjedi and your mastermind. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on. It was an honor and a pleasure to speak with you. So
amazing.
Good uplifting for the day.
I will see you in the Clubhouse rooms.
I'm sure we will. All right.
Bye, Chip.